Stealing an artifact from the Koban Temple of Lumina was supposed to be simple. Slip in, snatch the relic, and slip out before the zealots caught on. That was the plan. Instead, Kevin Kago found himself face to face with a furious Koban priestess, her glowing cyan skin nearly hypnotic as she blocked the only exit. Silver-white hair cascaded over her barely there ceremonial armor, bioluminescent patterns flickering in sharp waves of irritation. "You have exactly 3 seconds to put that down," she said, her voice smooth as polished glass, sharp as a blade. Kevin smirked, twirling the small golden orb between his fingers. The artifact pulsed faintly, its etched symbols shifting under the dim temple light. "I'd love to, sweetheart, but I went through a lot of trouble getting this far. Hate to leave empty-handed." The priestess narrowed her glowing eyes. "I am High Priestess Zara'a of the Koban Ascendancy, Keeper of the Vaults, and you, Off-Worlder, have made a grave mistake." Kevin clicked his tongue. "Gotta say, Zara, that title's a mouthful." He took a casual step toward the temple door. "Maybe we can negotiate. You tell me what this thing does, and I don't have to—" A blur of movement. Before he could react, Zara was on him, fast, too fast. One moment she was across the chamber, the next she was twisting his wrist, forcing him to drop the relic. He winced as she slammed him against a crystalline pillar, the artifact rolling harmlessly away. "I could break your arm right now," she murmured, her grip unyielding. Kevin grinned despite himself. "Kinky." She shoved him harder. "All right, fine," he groaned. "Technically, I didn't mean to steal from a holy temple, okay? I just needed the relic for a job." Zara's expression remained impassive. "A job?" "Yes, Your Holiness. A job. Some people trade in prayer and wisdom. I trade in—" He hesitated. "Acquisitions," she said flatly. "You mean theft?" Kevin shrugged, his grin unwavering. "Details." A flicker of something, annoyance, amusement, crossed her face before vanishing. "The Orb of Avalis isn't for thieves," she said firmly. "It contains ancient wisdom that must not be—" Temple alarms howled, cutting her off. Kevin swore. "We've got company." Zara's head snapped toward the door, her markings flashing a deep blue of concern. "Incoming forces detected," a mechanical voice echoed through the temple's ancient halls. "Intruders, neutralize on sight." Kevin sighed. "See, this is why I work alone." Zara's gaze flicked back to him, sharp as a dagger. "This is your doing." "Well, not intentionally," he admitted. "I may have bribed a temple guard who may have sold me out to bounty hunters." He gestured toward the growing commotion. "And I may have just become your best shot at getting out of here alive." Her markings pulsed as she assessed him. Then, with clear reluctance, she released her grip. "Where's your ship?" Kevin grinned. "At her, girl." She punched him in the stomach. By the time they reached the outer temple, the mercenaries were already descending. Sleek black ships hovered over the floating city, their engines thrumming with ominous intent. Zara's gaze darkened. "They brought reapers." Kevin whistled. "You must be more valuable than I thought." She glared at him. "What now, thief?" Kevin cracked his knuckles. "Now, we run." They bolted through the temple gates as energy bolts erupted around them. Kevin yanked Zara behind a crystalline column, reaching for his communicator. "Kale, bring the Starland around. We got incoming." A static-filled voice crackled. "Kev, tell me you didn't piss off a religious order again. Just do it." With a frustrated sigh, Kevin grabbed Zara's wrist and ran. They wove through the temple's floating bridges, bounty hunters hot on their heels, the neon skyline of Lumina glowing beneath them. Zara was surprisingly agile, keeping pace with him effortlessly. The Starland, a sleek silver spacecraft, roared into view just as they reached the final landing platform. Its ramp lowered, revealing Kale, a four-armed reptilian pilot, waving them in. "Move your asses!" Kevin shoved Zara forward as he fired a few wild shots behind him, forcing the hunters to scatter. Just as he reached the ramp, a blast struck the edge. Kevin lost his footing. Zara caught him. For a moment, their eyes locked, her bioluminescence casting a soft glow against the metallic ramp. Her grip was surprisingly strong as she pulled him up. "Not today, thief," she murmured. Kevin grinned. "You do care." She dropped him unceremoniously onto the deck. The ramp sealed shut as the ship shot into the sky, leaving the chaos of the temple behind. Kevin lay on the floor, catching his breath as Zara loomed over him, arms crossed. "You abducted me," she accused. Kevin stretched, making himself comfortable. "Rescued, abducted, tomato, tomato." Her markings pulsed a deep violet, frustration. From the cockpit, Cale groaned. "Kev, if she kills you in your sleep, I'm not stopping her," Cale muttered. Kevin winked at Zara. "Guess that means we're roomies for now, Priestess." She huffed, turning away, but not before something flickered across her expression, something that looked suspiciously like amusement. Kevin smirked. This job was about to get very, very interesting. Kevin Kago had always thrived on chaos, but even he had to admit this was getting out of hand. The Starland barreled through the void, pursued by 3 bounty ships, their plasma cannons lighting up the darkness like furious stars. In the cockpit, Cale cursed in his native hissing tongue, yanking the controls to narrowly dodge a volley of fire. "I hate to say, I told you so," Cale snapped. "But no, you don't," Kevin cut in, leaning over the pilot's chair. "And now's not the time for gloating." Behind them, Zara stood with arms crossed, radiating pure disapproval. Her glowing cyan skin pulsed in slow, deliberate waves. Kevin had started recognizing the patterns by now. At this moment, she was somewhere between annoyed and murderous. "This wouldn't be happening if you had just returned the artifact," she said. Kevin shot her a grin. "Or, hear me out, we wouldn't be alive to argue about it if I hadn't grabbed you when I did." Zara narrowed her eyes. "You call kidnapping me a rescue?" Kevin shrugged. Semantics. A fresh blast rocked the ship, cutting off their bickering. Zara steadied herself against the cockpit wall, then spun back to Kevin. "You will release me as soon as we're safe." Kevin didn't answer, not because he didn't want to, but because his gaze had caught on the soft glow pulsing along the curve of her collarbone. He had noticed it earlier in the temple, how her bioluminescent markings responded to her emotions. Right now, the slow undulation of light wasn't just irritation. No, there was something else there. Amusement. Interest. Before he could say something charming or deeply stupid, Cale cut in. "We won't be safe if I can't shake these bastards." He punched a sequence into the controls. "We need somewhere to hide." Zara straightened, brushing off Kevin's gaze. "There's an abandoned Sin sanctuary on a nearby asteroid. The energy field should disrupt their scanners." Cale grunted. "Fine, sending coordinates." The ship banked hard, forcing Kevin to grip the seat as they sped toward the asteroid cluster. The glowing rocks loomed ahead, swirling with luminescent gases, the perfect hiding place. The Starland settled on the rocky surface, tucked inside a neon-lit cavern. Outside, the bounty hunters' ships roared past, failing to pick up their signal. Cale exhaled. That was too close. Kevin turned to Zara, arms wide. "See? We make a great team." She scoffed. "I tolerate you." Kevin smirked. "I'll take it." With Cale staying aboard to monitor scanners, Kevin and Zara ventured deeper into the ruins. Ancient Coban structures pulsed with forgotten energy, lining the cavern walls. The air thrummed with an eerie hum. Zara ran her fingers over the glyphs carved into the stone. "This place predates even our recorded history," she murmured. Kevin leaned beside her. That mean we shouldn't touch anything? She shot him a glare. Especially you. He chuckled, but then he noticed something. The glow of her markings had changed again. The pulses had softened, flickering in a slower, almost hypnotic rhythm. Curious, Kevin folded his arms. So tell me, why does a high priestess know how to fight like that? Zara hesitated. My position requires more than prayer. We guard knowledge, sometimes with force. Kevin nodded. And yet you seem way more irritated about being stuck here with me than the fact that someone's trying to kill you. She exhaled, tilting her head. You are insufferable. Kevin grinned. And yet you haven't stabbed me. Zara's lips quirked, just a ghost of a smile. Progress. Hours passed as they worked to decrypt the artifact. Zara traced the golden orb's shifting symbols, brows furrowed in deep concentration. Kevin, despite himself, found his attention drifting, not just to her intelligence, but to the way the light played over her features, how her markings glowed softly when she was lost in thought. He leaned closer. So, what does it say? Zara didn't move away. It speaks of devotion, she murmured. A rite that binds two souls together, stronger than blood, beyond time. Her voice was softer now. Kevin, uncharacteristically quiet, studied her. So, what happens? Zara's gaze flickered to Kevin's. If someone completes this rite, she hesitated, then exhaled. They kneel before the one they choose. A charged silence stretched between them. Kevin smirked, trying to break the tension. And here I thought you'd never kneel for someone like me. Zara let out a breath, something almost like a laugh. But before either of them could say anything else, the scanner on Kevin's wrist flashed red. Zara's glow darkened. What is it? Kevin exhaled. They found us. Outside, enemy ships circled the asteroid. Inside the ruins, Kevin and Zara crouched behind a crumbling pillar, listening to the sound of boots on stone. We're outnumbered, Kevin muttered. Zara clenched her fists. We'll have to be smart. Kevin smirked. I prefer lucky. A pause, then, you're bleeding. Kevin blinked as Zara reached out, her fingers brushing a shallow cut on his jaw. The moment stretched. Her bioluminescent markings pulsed, slow, warm, inviting. Kevin swallowed. Priestess, if you keep looking at me like that, I might start thinking you don't hate me. She didn't pull away. Then, footsteps, close. Zara's breath hitched. Kevin leaned in, lips inches from hers. So close now. A blast shook the cavern. Kevin groaned. Really? Terrible timing. Zara smirked, stepping back. Saved by the bounty hunters. Kevin huffed. Admit it, Priestess. You were tempted. Zara turned away, but the glow on her skin gave her away. Kevin grinned. This just got even more interesting. The revelation hit Zara like a meteor strike. The artifact wasn't just a relic. It was the key to an ancient Koban ritual, the rite of devotion, a sacred vow that bound two souls together for eternity. The final act? Kneeling before the one chosen as a life partner. Zara stared at the translation, her bioluminescence flickering erratically. Beside her, Kevin gave a low whistle. Well, he stretched back against his seat. That's a hell of a twist. She turned to him, voice tight. This is not something to take lightly. Kevin raised his hands in mock surrender. Hey, I'm all for deep spiritual revelations, but we've got a more pressing issue. He nodded toward the sensors. A cluster of bounty hunter ships closed in. We're out of time, Priestess. The sanctuary on Koban Prime was their only safe haven, if they could reach it before the enemy ships caught up. Pushing aside her tumultuous emotions, Zara took the co-pilot seat and began calculating coordinates. Hold on, Kevin muttered, yanking the controls. The ship spiraled through the neon-lit asteroid field, dodging blaster fire as they surged toward the sanctuary's protective energy field. Explosions flashed behind them, shaking the ship violently. "Almost there," Kevin gritted out. With a final burst of speed, the Starland punched through the sanctuary's shielding, narrowly escaping the barrage. Bounty hunter ships slammed into the barrier behind them, thrown back like rag dolls. The sanctuary's automated defenses activated, finishing off the stragglers. Kevin let out a breath, laughing breathlessly. "Remind me to never piss off Coban zealots again." Zara was already unstrapping herself, urgency in her every movement. "The artifact must be secured." They moved quickly through the sanctuary's crystal corridors, where ancient murals of past rituals shimmered on the walls. But their moment of safety was short-lived. A group of armed mercenaries had made it inside before the barrier closed. Blades ignited, blasters hummed. Kevin and Zara fought side by side, a seamless fusion of skill and instinct. He covered her with precise shots while she wielded her energy staff with deadly grace. The fight was brutal, but together they cut through the enemy ranks. Just as they thought they had the upper hand, a mercenary fired, straight at Zara. Kevin didn't hesitate. He threw himself in front of her. The blast slammed into his side. He collapsed to one knee, gasping as pain lanced through him. Zara's eyes went wide. She knelt beside him, hands trembling as she touched his face. "You fool!" she whispered. "Do you not understand?" And then, to his utter shock, she lowered herself fully, her knees pressed into the sanctuary floor before him. Kevin froze, mind struggling to process what he was seeing. Zara. Her glowing markings pulsed with a deep, undeniable truth. "I swore I would never kneel to anyone," she murmured. "But for you." Her voice barely above a whisper. "I choose to." Kevin's breath hitched. His usual cocky grin was nowhere to be found. Instead, he reached for her, brushing his fingers over her cheek. "You're serious?" She nodded, raw and vulnerable. "I am." He exhaled a shaky laugh. "You know this means forever, right?" "I do." And then he was kissing her, pouring every ounce of disbelief, relief, and devotion into it. Zara melted into him, her hands gripping his shoulders as she deepened the kiss. The sanctuary's energy pulsed around them, as if recognizing the bond they had just forged. Kevin groaned, pulling back slightly. "You sure you want to tie yourself to a rogue like me?" Zara smirked, tracing a glowing pattern along his jaw. "I think I'm exactly where I belong." They made it back to the Starland under the cover of darkness. Cale, seeing the heated tension between them, grumbled something about finally before locking himself in the engine room. In the quiet of Kevin's quarters, everything that had built between them, every stolen glance, every near kiss, every unspoken desire, finally came to a head. The moment the door sealed shut, Kevin wasted no time. He pressed Zara against the wall, hands roaming over her glowing skin, tracing the shifting patterns pulsing under his touch. She gasped, fingers tangling in his hair, pulling him closer, their mouths colliding again and again. Her ceremonial armor was intricate, but he made quick work of the clasps, peeling it away to reveal her bare, luminous form. Zara, undeterred, tugged at his shirt, exposing bruised skin from his injury. "You should rest," she murmured, even as her hands moved with deliberate intent. Kevin chuckled, breath hitching as she pressed against him. "Not a chance." The night was a blur of heat, whispered names and reverent touches. Every movement was a silent vow, deeper than words, binding them in a way no ancient ritual ever could. By morning, the temple sanctuary buzzed with activity, but inside the Starland, Kevin and Zara lay tangled in the sheets. Her bioluminescent glow cast soft patterns against his skin. A chime broke the quiet. Kevin groaned, reaching for his communicator. A message flashed across the screen. New bounty issued. "For the love of—" He sat up, reading further. Looks like someone's still after us." Zara arched a brow, stretching beside him. Kevin smirked. Guess we've got ourselves a honeymoon chase. She rolled her eyes, but her smile was genuine. You are insufferable, and you love it. She sighed dramatically before pulling him in for another kiss. Unfortunately, as the engines roared to life, the Starland took off into the stars, carrying them toward whatever adventure or trouble awaited next. Together,